Hello and welcome to this episode 2 of Dyson Design. And today I'm joined once again by Tyler, and we're going to talk about character creation. Hello, Tyler. How you been doing?
Hey, pretty good.
Pretty good. Got some gaming this week.
Yeah, quite a bit of gaming this week. Got a water filter installed for the whole house, so that's a good deal. We're not drinking just straight up poison water anymore.
Oh, that's good for
So,
you, man. That's good for you. I use those like a Berkeley filter. I'm on a well, but because sometimes there's a lot of iron in my water.
yeah, we have super hard water, and we get it from one of the lakes nearby. And with the agricultural college right next to us, we have so much pesticide runoff, and
Oh,
it's.
man.
But yeah, this has brought us from like 550 parts per million down to 15. So
That's
sweet.
good.
Yeah.
Modern world.
Yeah.
So, character creation.
Mm.
Uh, First thing I want to talk like what is like let's just break in like what's your favorite game? Your favorite like game of character creation in a game? Like what's the system that you have that you say like man that's how I want to create all my character?
Okay. So I have two answers. This is twofold. Because hey, Rick Steele. Uh here's the answer you're expecting. Pathfinder. Pathfinder First Edition, because there are so many damn options. You can play a fighter 100 times without making the same character, without even thinking about, you don't even have to get into flavor. Just purely mechanically, you're going to be making something different every time because there's 41 first party archetypes. There's, you get 2 feats at first level, and there's thousands of feats in the game. So, and then how you allocate your skills. So, through sheer volume of options, it's Pathfinder First Edition. Through how you go about making the character, it is absolutely not Pathfinder First Edition, because I have a player to get them to understand what the hell any of this is. That feat sucks. Don't pick that. You don't want to put points in there. No, that's a class skill. Yes, you can put points into skills that are not class skills, but it's sort of nightmarish from the mechanical perspective. But once you understand the mechanics, it's my favorite. From a mechanical perspective, I really, really like Hackmaster 5th Edition because it randomizes pretty much everything that you do. So you don't really, you can, it's a super crunchy system with a ton of different options like Pathfinder, but you can drag somebody into your game and go, just roll me dice and I'll tell you what your character is. Just keep rolling that. And then, basically it's a game of, do you want, the more you roll, the more powerful your character is going to be, but also the more drawbacks they're going to end up having.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a too long didn't read. So, yeah.
And there's also like I can tell like for me like the one system that like I look at the character creation I say like man that's really cool was the Burning Wheel.
Mhm.
It's too bad that's not a system that I particularly like, but I really like those life path system, and I guess like other game did it as well, and that's what I'm doing with Winter Dawn as well, which is what I'm working on
Mhm.
right now actually. But where you pick you basically like discover who your character is, like his background, where he come from, what he did before being an adventurer and stuff like that. So you have the background baked in your character creation, and it also give you the skill that you're gonna have for your character. And I think
Mhm.
this is a nice way to it basically like put you in character already because you know your past. You're not picking a class, you're not picking a feat, you're picking what you did. Who are you basically? So I think that's very cool for that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's one of the pitfalls of games like Pathfinder,
Mm.
where the vast majority of people who play it, they look at it and go, "Oh, I have, I'm going to start with power attack because it's good." It's
Yeah.
like that doesn't tell you anything about your character, right? But and it takes a you have to think about it. And for me, I just say power attack's a dumb feat. You don't have to take a feat to be able to hit harder but less accurately. That's just something you should be able to do. Rabbit hole. But um like taking a combat feat without thinking about, okay, so my character has some combat training. What does that mean? Maybe I had a character that took a dip. They took a monk. They took a level in monk. They don't take a level in monk for no reason, just because it offers mechanical benefits. No, he spent a year at a monastery and learned their fighting style and decided that that was it. He got what he needed out of that, and then moved on.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
those sorts of games build in. They lead with the flavor, and then the
and
crunch comes behind.
in those type of game also like the
Mm.
primary compound at as the game progress, because you're not done with character creation. Every fucking level you have like to pick feats, or oh, maybe I'm gonna take a dip in this class and like that, and then people won't do it when there's no like a role play reason justify for it. Hello, Crispy. Bonjour.
Salut.
Yeah. Crap phone feeds. Oh, not a fan. 2 feet lead, too many rules. That's the thing. Like feeds can really get you like bogged down. And
Yeah, I was just
you
about to use
mentioned
the
like
same
you
word.
mentioned like the plethora of option for Pathfinder. Pathfinder, it's kind of known for the character build. You're gonna look on if you look for like Pathfinder content on YouTube, you're gonna find like, oh, look at this cool character build that can do like 217 damage per round on average, And now like it make like it completely changed, or it really make like it really give you like a mechanical focus on what your character can do. And this is something like I rather avoid, to be honest. If I go into a role playing game, I don't want my player to approach the game in that way. I don't mind if they would try to make a character that is efficient and viable and can do something, can be useful. But there's some balance to be struck there. Like I want you to tell me who your character is, where he comes from, not just what he can do. And I think that's something in character creation, and you can tell me what you think about that. That there's the character sheet part, what you put on the character sheet, the number, the feed, the stuff like that, the button you can click. But then there's everything behind that. When we talk about backstory, which can be touchy. Like I know, like some people say, "Oh, don't give me a backstory," but we'll talk about that. But also
But
like personality and stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, exactly. Tell me it. I'm just gonna stick with Pathfinder it can be any system, your favorite system. You start the game with a rank in knowledge nobility. Okay, why does your character know about the nobility? Explain. Are they a noble themselves? Are they, that can be, and you don't have to write the backstory beforehand. That can be something in character that you come up with on the spot, as long as you're good at doing that. The moment that's how you flavor, oh, I'm rolling knowledge nobility, instead of just saying I roll knowledge nobility. I think back to the ballroom dances I've been to with X, Y, and Z, and you didn't write that down. You that's not in your backstory. It might be if it helps you, but that can be part of it. So the skills can build that. But again, you have to be Pathfinder itself. If you just look at the rules, it does not explain to you how to do any of that. It just gives you some stats on a character sheet. You're exactly right. And yeah, feats, Crap Phone's right. They do get you bogged down into things which is part of why I recommend my players do follow builds, so they don't have to look down, the 2,500 or however many of them there are, and filter out, 1,000 of them don't work for your character at all. 500 of them are just bad, and then now figure out the rest of them. So.
And there's something you mentioned earlier, like about you talk about the option of Pathfinder that you like. You can play like 1,000 fighter or 100 fighter, all going to be different, stuff like that. But on the flip side of that, people would say when you have like fewer option and a more freeform kind of game, like old school game in a way, some people would say like this is what allow you that every fighter is going to be different. Or like I say, like one of my favorite game is Pendragon, and I often say, well, everybody's a human knight. Like that's out of the way. Like there's no question about that. So now, if you want to make your character different and unique, you have to go somewhere else. You're not going to distinguish it by those options that you chose. You're not gonna like, oh, I made this weird race and class combination, or maybe dual class there. So now you have to focus on who your character is as a person, because we know what he is. He's a human knight. And I think in Pathfinder, in game with Pathfinder, when they give you a lot of option to make your character, to distinguish your character, it does become like people see that as the way to make the character unique and forget about the element.
Yeah, and that's why I said the game doesn't at all explain to you that sort of stuff. But if you're looking for it, all of the archetypes and stuff, they have places in the world that they fit into. They tie the character into a certain profession or something like that, or something. But yeah, you absolutely have to be looking for it, right? And the vast majority of players, they don't look for it. They don't even know to look for it because the game doesn't tell them to. Yeah, they're that Shauner says, how do you role play if the only thing written down on your sheet is level 1 fighter? How do you role play that? And it's like, well, that's going to be really hard. So it can be a crutch. Rex Teal here says,
yep,
at me, I get you like Pathfinder, but it's the type of character creation. You don't need to preface with that. You can hate Pathfinder. I didn't write it. It's the type of character creation that I don't like. Character builds feel less immersive to me, and the system looks too restrictive on player actions. Yeah, on the system side of thing, don't want to get bogged down into that, but kind of a cop-out answer. You as a GM just have to unbolt the system's a submarine. It's got a bunch of valves you can fiddle with, and you have to know which of those valves you can open without sinking. But yeah, it can be. I guess it's really, do you have that mindset of you look at a feat and go, what does that feat mean to my character? Or do you have the inverse of it where you have a background and go from the mechanical benefits from the flavor?
Yeah. Do you like Darren Cartwright was saying here, I like Pathfinder use optional rules, Mythic, Madness, Occult, because they give options that are more flavor. I don't know what those are. Do you have like, are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I am. Darren's a player in some of my campaigns. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the Madness rules themselves, but I like the idea of them, which is, if you have, you can play a character with, schizophrenia, and that has certain statistical things that it does to you. So there's a mechanical, and that's the big thing I like about Crunch, right? You don't just have this reliance on the GM making stuff up on the fly and hoping that it's somewhat decent. You've got this pre-written. The flavor is being actively supported by the mechanics of the game. Mythic as well. You level up in a totally different way. It's not just XP, but you have to complete specific like mythical objectives to more akin to a milestone system in order to get new mythic tiers, and it ranks up totally separately from your level. So you can have a mythical hero who is not very physically strong, but has a few like weird like supernatural abilities that they seem to be able to tap into occasionally. And then occultism, where it's all built into that. Mm-hmm.
Character creation. Some game, and yeah, for me, Pathfinder is one of those. Does make character creation like a bit of a chore. I'm not gonna lie, like, because there's so many options, and I could go in and just think of who my character is and pick the first option I see and try not to think too much about it. But if the text is there, if the options are there, I will want to look at them, and then I have like hundreds of options to wade in and to try to pick. And even if I'm not trying to pick like to make like the most optimal character, I'm gonna try to pick something interesting. But sometimes there's gonna be like maybe half a dozen options that I find interesting, and then like, which one is the coolest? This one is very cool, but this one is slightly different thing there.
And I want both of these. Do I take this one now or do I take this one next level? But yeah, it's definitely easy to get in that trap. And I'd say there you have to if you're making interesting decisions each time, it can be fun, right? Fun, subjective, of course, but for me, it's fun to look through and go like, wow, I've got all of these options. Maybe I'll do it this way this time, but maybe next time I
Mhm.
play a similar character, I do it the other way and see how that interacts. And that's very much on the gamey side of things. But I like that part of the game when I'm making my character. That's almost part of the it's part of the game without being part of the game, if that makes sense. Part of the game is building your
It's
character.
I think it's a very different type of game because
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
very like cerebral, it's very like analytic, and
mm.
it's
And
waiting at the
I'm an editor, so I have the kind of brain that just enjoys scanning through walls of
Mhm.
text and going, "Ooh, what's the important thing here? Okay, ooh, that's interesting. All right, so move on to the next thing." And that's why builds, I think, are so popular in Pathfinders, because somebody else has already done
Mhm.
all the sorting for you. But yeah, if you don't have fun with this is why I say I have to spend, an hour per player, sometimes building their characters, because uh, if you just leave a brand new player to a system like Pathfinder, uh, they're going to be totally, oh, what's the thing? Analysis paralysis. They're just going to be like, where the hell do I even start? I don't understand. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because it's a very front loaded system.
yes,
Like
you
in the
get
sense that
so much at level 1 for good
so
and
much
bad.
level 1, so much choice to make at level 1. Some other system like I know like a lot of the old school system, I love and there's some system like like to take the example again because that's the one like I often talk about.
Hmm.
Pendragon. In Pendragon, you don't have any feats. You have some skill, and that's it. Some skill, some passion, some virtue, but a lot of it is that you don't have like many mechanical piece to interact with. So that takes a lot out of the character creation as well. I guess like
Hmm.
maybe like a more crunchy system is necessarily gonna have like a more complex character creation.
Mm, I mean, yes and no. Skipping around in the comments here because Max just walked into it. This is Dungeon Crawl Classics does this too via funnels. Dungeon Crawl Classics is a game that is fairly crunchy. It's a pretty crunchy system. It's not as crunchy as some things, but I would say it's like mid-level crunch. And the character creation in that is super simple because you make no choices at character creation because of the way the funnel works. But I would say that's more of an exception. I'm kind of cherry picking here. But Dungeon Crawl Classics is an example of a system um, that does it like that, right? Where
Yep.
you're totally beholden to the luck of the dice. Um, but yeah, I would say by and large, systems like let's say the first one that comes to my mind, Reminisce, that I played with Abraham the other day. You got 4 stats. You have a fixed number of points to spend between them, and then you have some money to start with. That's pretty much it. Um, and yeah,
Okay.
that game's not crunchy at all. It's
There's a,
very easy to run.
there's a lot to unpack here. Like I wanted to talk about Traveler as well because like Traveler is well
Yes,
known to like
yes.
oh like if people like know one thing about Traveler, which is often like not even true anymore. Like and Shauna will like scream if we talk about that, but like oh you can die in character creation, you know. And I remember like I saw like at some point like Victor Gorchev like in doing a video like Victor's make a character when he make a character for Traveler and it's the first character he tries die in character creation. He was like playing the first version of Traveler, like a classic
Mm,
whatever, classic Traveler. I don't exactly remember the detail. But like, yeah, what about those games where
yeah,
because it's like in Traveler, you do have choice, but there's this mechanic you roll a lot, but you choose if you keep rolling or if you don't. There's this mechanic of push your luck, and I think this is very interesting, and this is what makes it makes it a game. If you had no choice, it's not a game. If you choose everything, it's not a game. But now like when you start like thinking like well you can keep rolling and maybe you're gonna get more but maybe you're gonna get less, now there's like this push your luck. Now you have a choice to make and you have to make the choice without knowing everything. There's a chance that you take. I think that's a very
Mm.
interesting approach.
Yeah,
I
and that's
like.
that's
Yes,
what I
sorry,
like
go.
about Hangmaster, where I think that is the better from a building a character perspective. I think that's the one that does it better because it does it very similar to Traveler. It what am I trying to say? Yeah, there's that push your luck mechanic. So uh and it encourages you to randomize because you get basically you can take flaws and then get points to build your character for the
Mhm.
more flaws that you take. If you pick and choose manually, you get you can only pick so many, and you get fewer points for doing so. But if you choose randomly, I think you can pick as many as you want, and you get more points for letting So there's that idea of like, well, I'm gonna be allergic to something that's not very common, just so I can get a point,
Yeah.
so I can be a little better at this thing. Uh, but I'm going to get way more points. I'm going to create a much stronger character, but a much more interesting character because he's got these deep flaws very potentially. Or maybe I just end up creating, a Superman type character where he's really only got one big drawback and the rest I can kind of ignore. But yeah, they all have mechanical things and they all inform how you play that character. At the same time, it takes those decisions out of your player's hands, and there can be this, from my experience at least, there can be this thing of people want to play cool characters, right?
Mhm.
We don't want to role play who we are in real
Well,
life
yeah,
generally.
I always like
Like,
wanted to play like
mm,
interesting character, not necessarily
mm,
cool, but
yeah, but a lot of people do,
mm,
and
a lot of people
if
are in
you've
the
ended
power
up,
fantasy. They wanna play like cool, but like they wanna play
yeah,
like
yeah.
strong and like they wanna
Yeah,
win. They
and
wanna win at role playing
and
game.
that line moves, right? But,
Mm,
when, you can get to a certain point where they push their luck a little bit, and then they roll a thing that's like, take 2 more drawbacks, and then
mhm.
they roll into, like it sorta, like, explodes into a, "Okay, now you're starting your character as a blind, wheelchair-bound, like, basically a useless, a character that can't, do anything in the context of adventuring," and then it's like, okay, well, let's just re-roll. And at a certain point, if you're re-rolling the character, does the randomization push your luck mechanic matter? Should you not have just chosen those things?
Well, if even if you can re-roll and choose to scrap one character and make a new one, are you gonna do that like 100 times before you get the one you like, the
Yeah,
one you're
yeah,
hoping for? You
exactly.
know what I mean? At some point, and
Mm,
even if you like, you maybe you don't even scrap one character, maybe you just like, okay, maybe I'm gonna put down that one on the side, but I'm gonna create another one, and then maybe after you a few, none of them you really like, but you pick one that like you like best, and then because at some point also that's something people need to like. Sometimes maybe new player like no, your character might not be perfect. You might not be in love with your character at first sight, but you can grow to love him while
mm,
playing him. You get
mm,
adventure to it, you get attached to it. I think that's a big part that oftentimes people forget. They want to have like this very cool character from the get go. No, your character is gonna
mm.
get cool by you playing it. You're gonna by you
Yeah,
giving it life to him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, I think that's mostly a preference thing. What is the and
Mhm.
preference and flavor of whatever it is you're running, and
Yeah. And L was saying here, because that link well to the randomization thing. You say like pick one of the 6 class and start rolling dice. Character creation takes 5 minutes top. That's what we often see in the old school game. But even oftentimes what we did was roll 3d6 down the line. So at some point, like there now you have this randomization there that you don't even choose what your stats are. So it's not pick one class and then start rolling. It start rolling and then look what class you can do with those roll.
hmm
I love that because it forces you in a way to play character you wouldn't play normally. But I didn't always like that when I was a little boy because sometimes I didn't want to play like I don't want to play a mage. That's the crux of my existence. I don't want to fucking play a magic user.
mm,
But But once you played like enough characters, at some point it's cool to just say like, you know what, I don't know who I'm gonna play. I don't know who that guy is gonna be. So
Hmm?
like, and then you look at it and
And
say, oh man, that's pretty cool. And then you
uh,
interpret stuff and
you can make an argument too that that's the more realistic or the more verisimilitudinous. I don't know how to turn that into an adjective, but the more grounded way to do it, because oh, yeah, I chose to go to college, but I was also strongly pushed by the fact that I went to a college prep high school and I didn't choose to go to that high school. That was chosen for me, right?
Mhm.
So that's, there's does anyone choose to have the flaws they have? Generally not. Sometimes we do, but, generally the
A
flaws
lot
are
of time
just,
we do.
yeah, but,
That's a different topic. But
but some birth defect or something that gives you a useless arm. That's
yeah,
you don't choose that because it suddenly gives you more points to spend on skills.
yeah.
um
But then also, you know, not everybody is gonna become an adventurer as well. Like you need to be a special type of depending on the game. Some game you're gonna say like, well, you're just Joe Blow off the street, and then something happened, and now you have to do something about it. And those can be fun as well. But oftentimes, you're gonna play somebody that chose to have this type of adventure, so you must have some kind of predilection, I guess you could say.
mhm.
Wouldn't be a fair assumption.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not. I mean, I guess the closest thing is talk to anyone in the military today, and the military is huge, especially
Hmm.
in the United States. But there's some underlying stereotypes that you can sort of suss out the kind of person that is joining the military, right? They're not your average people. I mean, they're
Hmm.
average people in by some metrics, but it's a particular kind of person that is willing to take on a dangerous job on one end and just an obnoxious lifestyle on the other end, where you're at the beck and call of the government. Uh so
But sometimes you do meet somebody that you learn they're a veteran, that they,
mhm,
they they joined the army at some point and say, "What, you? No fucking
mhm.
way."
Yeah, there's always outliers, yeah, and it can be
Yeah.
fun to play those outliers. But if you're always playing the outlier character, it can be kind of come on.
And
um
the idea of like playing like Joe Blow from down the street that suddenly has to go adventure, that is basically what DCC does
mm,
with those funnel.
mm,
I always like thought that was a cool idea. And like sometimes you,
yeah.
you look like, yeah, I think it's a cool idea because you roll randomly for a character, and that's basically the idea. You got those four
Mm,
character, maybe one is gonna survive, maybe two, but the player kind of have like some say into that. If there's one character that you say like, oh man, those stats are good, I'd like to play this character, like those stats are well aligned to the kind of character I want to play. You do direct your four character in a way that maybe this one is the kind of one that's gonna survive. So you do have like this kind of a, it might not happen or you plan, but it brings the randomization, gives some choice. uh I think that's a nice compromise, and it also
mm,
it makes for cool adventure as well. And then you you
mhm,
you get you get to discover who your character is based on the true play. I think that's a cool
mhm.
yeah.
And because they're at the level 0 character, even if you rolled great stats, you are still at the beck and you're still at the behest of luck to a great extent. So
Mm.
maybe all your characters that had the great stats, maybe they end up dying, and somehow the sickly, like all average and below average stats across the board, maybe that guy is the one that ends up living through it all. And now you're even more motivated to succeed and play the game with him, because that makes it special, that he was the one to survive. um
Yeah. And what do you think? Like, it often seemed to me like when I look at the different, I read a lot of role playing system, different game. It's a hobby of mine in itself, I guess. Sometimes games I have no intention of playing ever, but I like reading the books anyway.
mhm,
And a lot of them seem to put like very little thought in character creation. Like character creation is something that is there. because you need to create a character, but there's nothing fun, nothing unique about it, nothing that gives you insight. It's just like, oh, you have some point, pick them, put them there, put them like pick some option. Why do you think that a game designer don't put more focus on this part of the game that is an important part of the game?
Yeah.
Is the first contact you have with your character. You're gonna
Hmm. I'm trying to think of a system I can think of that does that. But yeah, that's definitely true. I don't know why you wouldn't focus uh on character creation to some extent, because yeah, that's exactly it. Especially, I mean, let's say, if you're solo role playing a game, pretty much the only thing you have to go on is the character creation process and what you built in there. So I wonder if that's like it if the designer is used to the like 30-page backstory that exists as like a totally different thing, that there's all the flavor of your character, this is just random mechanical stuff and they have nothing to do with each other, moving on. And I don't think that's a good way to do it, but unfortunately it is the way a lot of people do it, because a lot of people, they separate role play and the game into
Yep.
two completely different things. And
Mhm. Yeah. There was a comment there, and it's gonna drag take us to something else I want to talk about. Well, I can also like before I go there. I think like people like don't. I think it's a shame that game designer don't put more attention to this character creation.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I'm gonna be a bit like mean there, but I think oftentimes it's just like fucking laziness.
Uh, yeah, I was just about to say Pathfinder Second Edition is, it feels that way because they wanted to
Mhm.
narrow down your choices so it's not as bloated. But if you narrow down your choices in Pathfinder, what do you have? It's not interesting. You don't have interesting choices to make.
The
Really,
character
it's like,
creation become like very mechanical. It's just
yeah,
something,
it it,
and
it
that's
feels
what I
very
mean when it
video
becomes like
gamey.
a chore. Like yeah, somebody was a like build are so video gamey. There's also many games that
Mm,
you make
yeah,
do
yeah.
one or two choice for your build. I prefer a skill-based game where you can slowly evolve in your character. Yeah, I'm
Mm,
the same as well. But yeah, it's true. Like
mm,
it's just like pick some option. And but like I found like the comment from Rex Steele here is very interesting. You say I remember watching Legend of Myth's coverage of Mutant Megatron. It had character building and min maxing, yet it actually felt right. You're a you
mm.
are a robot who's building yourself, and it felt immersive. I think that's a very interesting take because now, like, okay, we can talk against character build and this maxing stuff like that, but like, if the team support it, then all of a sudden, maybe it
Yeah,
changed what it said.
yeah, the Mech Warrior games, the RPG equivalent of BattleTech, if you know
Hmm.
that. They're very much the same way. Of course, your character is your character, but when you're building, your mech, the mechs have a lot of character for being inanimate objects, right? You have the choices. Do you the type of person who's going to pilot the thing that's got paper thin armor just so he could fit a giant cannon on it? What kind of a person is that, right? Is guy's probably a bit of an adrenaline junkie, right? Or maybe he's just, maybe he's a depressed, dropout alcoholic that just, the military was the only place for him to go. He doesn't really care if he, wins or loses, and that's, part of why he's still alive. Is let go of everything. You can think of the mechanics in a bunch of different ways like that. Um, in Abraham's game I'm currently playing, to plug his channel, talking about games,
Yep.
Infinity's Edge, we know we're playing MMO characters, and of course, so it's explicitly video gaming there. We know we're playing video game characters, so we're not going to choose to build something bad. But also at the same time, in as I mentioned, we don't choose our flaws in real life, but we kind of do some of them. We
Hmm.
choose. I
I choose to
chose
be
to
an
go into.
asshole.
I chose to go into debt to go into college so that I could get those skills later on.
Hmm.
I chose to buy a home and have that, that mortgage payment every single month. You know, but I chose to go into English over anything else, and so I do choose all of these things, right? None of us decide. None of us decide. You know, I want to be crappy, actually, unless we do. But you know, the I don't like this idea that it's inherently video gamey to want to succeed at something as a character because the
That's funny
character.
because like you said, like nobody decided I want to be crappy, like, but you know, like not to go all culture war because like that's not the point of this show. But you know, all those people that want to be oppressed, want to be the victim, want to, you know.
Let me reframe it as the kind of people you want to play tabletop games with don't want to be crappy. You should play with people who strive for excellence.
Yeah. Yeah, Guardian of the Rune say if you're an adventurer, you need to be a special kind of cripple. Yeah, you need to be like kind of insane in the membrane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting, like because like now, like you say, like okay, we talked about like character creation that is interesting parts in itself, like almost as a mini game in itself, and we talk about like character creation that is linked to, and Rex Steel example was very good, like character creation that is linked to the theme of the game, and Abraham's game is a good one as well. What else? Is there any like other like, well, you know, like when I say like Burning Wheel, I think this is also linked to the theme of the game in the sense because you pick your life path. Life path system are always going to be linked in the game in the theme of the game. Just the choice that you have and the choice that you make does inform you on the kind of world that you're going to be in. So I guess like there's also like disadvantage in the life path type of character creation. Like it informs you in the on the world more than just saying, oh, there was a wizard in that world, and some of those wizards can cast twice in a round instead of once, you know. Yeah, that does tell you something about the world, but it's something very mechanical. It's not something that is very insightful. When you look at the life path system, I think you can glean a little more information. But what other games or the character as a thematically strong character creation? Can you think of any other one?
Shadowrun. I think Shadowrun's a good one. You take on because you know you have all of the cybernetic mechanics, and as you add the cybernetic implants and stuff, you start losing bits of your humanity. Because basically all the little machines are talking to each other and your brain, and eventually you become more machine than man. And because there's magic in that game, magic typically doesn't work unless you are just purely, you know, natural blooded human. So it can have disastrous consequences when people are casting spells on you. It can have that sort of thing. So it's really when you're making that hard choice of, do I want cybernetics? How many do I want? You know, it really feels like you're giving something up. Like you would be. Those characters are, you know, those characters are relegating themselves to, you know, people chopping off their arms to have a better punching arm. That's an insane world to live in, you know. And it makes you feel like when you are sitting there staring at that character sheet going, oh, do I want that? It feels like you're that character going, is it worth it? But yes, it is insanely crunchy. Shadowrun 5th edition, Darren is right here. It is pretty much impossible to make a Shadowrun character without Chummer. Part of that's the editing. The Chummer is it's a digital, it's an app that basically you just plug everything in and it keeps track of everything for you. And
I see.
Yeah. It's so crunchy that it's like nightmarish to try and it's partially because the book, part of what Chummer does is it'll go, here's a trait or something or a gun that you can buy. Here's the book it's from and the page that it's on. Because Shadowrun, the rules are all over the fucking book. It's infuriating. There's a good game buried in there, but it is buried in there because you have to go, oh, I'm building my character. What do I do here? Oh, if you want to be good at shooting, flip 200 pages away to go find. And it's like, why? What did you do this? But yeah, it's
but even in Pathfinder also, like people often time like use those app and stuff like that. I never use any any of those things. For me, if a game I need to use an app, sorry, it's probably like too much for me.
That's fair. I use I used to use exclusively physical sheets.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a printer in years. It's really the only reason I don't right now. The auto sheets and stuff can be helpful. All my players use them at this point, but I would say they're helpful, but not necessary. And in Shadowrun, it's borderline necessary.
Yep. Do you how do you feel about like point buy? You know, we talk about like, oh, those games that add a lot of randomness. What about those games that fucking take it all away? There's nothing fucking random in the character creation. Everybody is gonna be like balance.
So
I hate that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I like some amount of balance. You know, I'm not just gonna immediately, all right, session 1, in media res, a level 20 dragon is attacking your level 1 party. You are all dead. There's too much imbalance, but things aren't balanced in real life. If a 300-pound, muscle-bound bodybuilder comes and tries to take your head off, and you're my size, that's an imbalanced fight. There's a reason we have weight classes to make things, fair in as far as we can. But even then, the skill doesn't match. So that I like randomization to represent that. Yeah, things aren't fair. Sometimes we have starting points that are different than the end goal that we'd like to achieve. Sometimes you get like a wall of stats that is just like, man, I'm going to be playing this, and then I kind of know this character is going to be dead by session 3 just because they have such garbage stats. You can run into that, but I think that's really the only issue with randomization. Because the issues with point buy is, well, point buy can make it unbalanced in the other direction. What do I mean by that? Well, it makes it unbalanced in the way that, when's the last time an average D&D player played a charismatic fighter with point buy? They don't, because charisma is a dump stat, and I hate the idea of dump stats. And you could argue on one side of that, you can have, well, the GM should make charisma matter in a way that the game's rules doesn't. Sure, but when there's always this temptation to go, well, I've only got so many points. I should put a below average stat in something, and then you can't get the rare breed of human that is just genetically gifted, where it's like, yeah, they don't have any flaws. This is a natural born athlete. They rolled super high in all their physical stats. This guy just gets education in academia. He's very intelligent naturally.
Yeah, but even like if you even without point buy, like people are gonna put like, if you have a dumb stat, people are gonna put like the lowest roll there if they can choose where to put the roll. Yeah, I would let a new role player roll up a few characters to choose from. An experienced player should be able to play whatever was rolled. Yeah, I agree with that. And also, like, sometimes you roll a character and say like, man, this guy is gonna go on and become a merchant or become a peasant. You know what I mean?
You've given the GM an NPC, and that's fine. Yeah. that's fine sometimes.
Yeah. One thing I like to, because I gotta say, point buy bothers me a lot in D&D type game. If you have like because like that's what I do with Winter Dawn. It's a life path system, and each option that you take costs you a certain number of points, which is based on previous option that you take. But it's based not on how strong the option are, but how unique the option is for for your social class, for your region. Like if you guys a guy from the desert that decide to become a sailor, it's gonna cost you more.
Yeah, quick insert about something I hate about Pathfinder, something that is infuriating that solves. The trait system, a great character creation thing for incorporating, some flavor into your characters. You get 2 traits and a drawback and another trait if you pick a drawback. Great. I like that system. Very simple. But you have some traits that are just way better than others, and they just take up your traits. So you end up with this party, and it's like, what is everybody? Everybody's reactionary because it gives them a +2 to initiative. And it's like,
It's great to be
so
reactionary.
you're playing a bunch of fucking crackheads running around, drawing swords at the slightest. And it's like, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I do also like I like to do when I run like a, which I rarely do nowadays, but when I run like a D&D type game, I prefer like the 3d6, rolling 3d6. I oftentimes let my player choose where they put it, but oftentimes like a modern player like want to do like the 4d6, drop the lowest, stuff like that, like which give stronger character. That's you, yeah. I find those characters are often come off too strong, but the compromise I do, you're gonna roll 3d6, you put them where you want, but then you got like 3 extra points to add in any stat you want. If you roll like crap, you can re-roll all your stat, and then you have 2 extra points to add. If you roll like crap again, you can re-roll all your stat, but then you have 1 extra point to add. You get another money again.
That's like a different way of how Hackmaster does it. What Hackmaster does is you roll and then you spend your character creation points to move your stats around 1 point at a time. So you can take just the big average roll and basically spend all of your points to just cram everything into the stats you want, but then you probably won't be very skilled, you won't have a lot of money to spend, you won't have all of that sort of thing. So I think that's an interesting way to do it. The way I do it is if you roll like absolute garbage, which is possible even with 46 drop the lowest, just because how averages work, then I will let them roll a second, but they have to take the second result. So that leads to like, is it that bad? Do you think it's that bad?
Yeah. And we talked a lot about like because obviously like people know D&D, people know Pathfinder and stuff like that, so it tends to take a lot of place in the conversation.
Yes.
But what about those game, like skill-based game, classless game, character creation there often does take like quite a different face in a way, because like when you go in a class-based game, you're gonna have like those big block that you pick from. You pick your class, you pick your race, maybe you pick some archetype, maybe you pick some option in there, but it comes in big package oftentimes. And then sometimes they add some fiddly bit, sometimes quite a lot of fiddly bit. When you go in a classless game, skill-based game, there's also aspect-based game. Aspect-based game are quite an interesting one as well. Like if you're familiar with some game like Barbarian of Lemuria, for example.
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
You don't have a class. You have, I forgot how they call them in that game, but like usually they refer to something at like aspect, where you pick something that is typical of your character. Like it's not exactly a class, but maybe he was a pilot, maybe he's a noble, maybe like it's something that is typical to your character, and then you're gonna be good at. It's not a list of skill, but everything that you can justify that my character would know that because of this aspect of him.
That's kind of how some of the skills work in Dungeon Crawl Classics, where they don't give you like a this skill can be used for X, Y. They're just like, here's a skill, and it's like use it for whatever it makes sense to use that skill for. But
but then those are much when you're an aspect game, they're much broader in the sense that you can be like a soldier. You're gonna know like how to do soldier stuff, which will include digging latrine, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of like Traveler, where you roll to you see what your profession is, and your profession informs some stuff. It changes your roles down the line a little bit, but it's not a class. It doesn't say there's nothing that says a sailor in the Merchant Marine can't do hacking rolls and stuff like that. It's just implied that they're not going to be as good as it as someone with the
what distinguishes aspect versus skill based is like in aspect game you don't have skill. You just like everything. If you roll something that is rated one of your aspect, you have this bonus. If it's not, you don't. So like basically every roll that you make is kind of a negotiation. I can justify it. I'm good at that because of this one aspect of my character.
That's interesting. I can see it leading to question asking if you don't have a good player group, because I've played things like that where you get the can I roll this? Would you let me roll? Can is it okay if I when you have we have
Yeah.
players that are too diplomatic to
They can lead to this like a kind of negotiation and people
mhm,
trying to stretch something a bit in aspect.
trying to cram something in where it definitely doesn't fit, but
Yeah.
they're trying to save their character. Yeah.
But in terms of character creation, they're usually like
Mhm.
very, very fast because you
Yeah.
just like pick a few aspects and then from you on a character. Actually, like Viktor Gorchev is working on his own system, and I think that's it's a 2d8 system, and I think that's what it's going
Mm,
for, like an aspect kind of base game.
interesting.
But and then there's like the skill base. Usually, like you're gonna pick like some option that's gonna bolster some of your skill, or sometimes it's just gonna be like point that you can like. And when you go to a skill base, and now oftentimes it's gonna be like many of them do point base. You just like distribute some point. Suddenly, like the point buy doesn't bother me in that sense. I guess it only bothers me when it's for attributes. I don't know why.
Mhm. Yeah. I think
You
it's because attributes should be generally, at least at character creation, something that are, they're your genetic predisposition, at least is what they're sort of representing. And, that is truly the thing we don't get to choose. We ourselves don't get to choose it anyways. Like Mifarog, uh, if you have a child in that game, the character stats are the average of the two parents. So that would be an interesting way to
the
do
average of
the
the two
non.
parents. I thought it was like the better of the two parents. When
Oh,
you roll
maybe it's the
character,
better.
you roll like twice for every stat,
Uh,
and then you pick the best one of unless it changed like
it
with later
may
edition,
have.
like
He's
edition
had
added studio.
a few revisions of that game, but I can't. Yeah, I can't. Either or, that's it's not something that's point by it. It is sort of that.
Oh, look at
Uh,
that! I think like those PBTA game, like one on having less option at the start. Have you played any PBTA system? Generally, you only get 3 choice to start with, but the playbook are closer to tropes and class. I think actually those PBTA games would fall into kind of into aspect game. They're kind of like a bit mixed.
mm,
They're move game, but like I think oftentimes like the moves come with the aspect that you choose. So that would be like 3 choice that you make. That would be it.
okay.
Yeah, I think that would classify that.
Yeah,
So that's
that's a good example. Then I do know that is one example. That's like the one
yeah.
example I know
I
that
know
is
like
not
I
working.
knew like Dungeon World, but it's been like so long ago
Mhm.
that I got Dungeon World when it was new. I looked
Yeah.
at it, never looked at it again.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think from my limited experience, my issue with those is that once you start going beyond, I don't know why I said it like that, beyond what your aspect is, it feels like you're at a lot. You're asking a lot of the GM to just make shit up out of nowhere because it's like, okay, I know what your aspect's good at, and then the rest of it is like, well, okay, what do I have? Because the game is it's very broad, but at the same time, that means the mechanics are very narrow. The mechanics
they
don't.
they're made those games are meant to really have like the mechanics get out of the way, and
Mhm.
you're not supposed to think too much about it. They're just there
Yeah,
like to be serviceable, and you
yeah,
you plow through.
yeah.
Full
I
Metal
think too much
Dragon
about
Full
it.
Metal Dragon made a comment earlier about Superman's weakness might be kryptonite, but he also has personally that quirk that only you ever use as much force as minimally required to handle a situation he isn't because how he was raised. I cannot read. And I wanted to highlight this comment because it can lead to another topic that I want to talk about on character creation, which is going beyond the character sheet.
Mhm.
You picked your option, you put something in your character sheet, you follow the guide in the book, but that's not all. Your character is not done now. You have to flesh it out. It gives you like the skeleton or what your character can do mechanically, but now you have to put some flesh and some fat on that character.
Mhm. Your character might be a fighter and he might have all these abilities, but does he take prisoners? Does he just kill everyone he gets in the game? If you fight him, you've signed your own death warrant. Does he does he wait, does he have hobbies? A lot of games. There's some games that have like a hobby skill. like Shadowrun has some hobby skills, but they're mostly like knowledge based stuff that might help you, learn about something. But most games don't. The little minutia of your character, you add that on later, right?
Yeah, and there's some system that do include that, and I'll go back to Pendragon that I mentioned earlier. You do have your virtue, you do have your passion, and this inform you of the personality of your character, what your character cares about, who your character hates, who your character love, and they also have like a mechanical impact on that. But in a typical Dungeon and Dragon type of game, that's often an aspect that's missing. So I think that's important, like, and something that seemed to me some type of player often like overlook. I always like it's kind of like a when like it's almost like a litmus test. Is that when people
Litmus
like tell
test,
you
yeah.
litmus test when people like tell you about their game,
D-
and you
mm,
they tell them about
yeah,
the character, and if they tell
I
you like, oh, I was playing X Y, like I was playing
I
I
hate
was playing
this.
a gnome ranger,
I
and this is the
hate
first
telling
thing.
people I love Pathfinder for this reason, because that's your interaction with any D20 system. Pick any D20 system except maybe Dungeon Crawl Classics, but yeah, really, like any D20 system, do that test. Go out
Yeah.
if you have not, go out in the wild and ask D20 players what's, what are you playing right now? What's in your party, or what's your favorite thing? 99% of the time they will lead with the mechanics
Yeah.
and not tell you, they won't tell you the name of their character. Like
I like, if they start with like oh, I'm a like I'm a tabaxi monk, whatever. If they start with that, yeah, it kind of raises a flag, but I don't lose it just yet, because
yeah.
sometimes people like start with that because an expectation that's what you're gonna start with. It gives you like the
Mm.
big line.
Mm.
Then the next line is important. If you tell me about a feat that you have, or a stat that you have, or like some kind like that, then like, man, you're playing a character sheet, you're not playing a character. If you tell me about,
Yeah.
oh, he got like this irrational fear of pie, and I don't know why I come to this like fucking crap example. That like Simon. But now, like, okay, now we're talking. Now maybe there's a character there, like. But I think that's something that it's a shame that people oftentimes like overlook too much in my taste.
Yeah, and it's like when I am trying to play the game of Pathfinder and I'm like, ooh, this is a really cool build, I have to justify it to myself. Why is this guy a fighter and a monk, and he's multi-classing in a million different things? Why? What's his story? So the last character I played like this, Albrecht of Taldor, he is the like second son to a baron in this crumbling old kingdom that they haven't conquered anything in hundreds of years. They're just sort of dilapidated. They have no reason to have knights anymore. He's got nothing to fight. He gets to be an adult and he's bored. He can't use any of his fighting skill. So he's a fighter. He's trained in the knightly arts there, but he's taking a level in monk. Oh, I took a level in monk because they get a style feat for free, and I thought that was good. No, he's taking a level of monk because he stayed at a monastery to see if their fighting styles was a little bit different. It's a different outlet for violence for him. Then he starts moving up north. He goes to train with the sword lords of Brevoy. And okay, well, now he's taking a level in Aldori Sword Lord. Okay, that's why his archetype is this. Unfortunately, most people don't think like that, right? They do think my character doesn't use armor, so I might as well take a level of monk because then we get the wisdom to armor for. And it's like, think about what being a monk is, especially in D20 systems. A monk is maybe the most flavorful thing you could pick in these. It's not just you're good at punching. You have a certain ethics code. You have this implication that you've studied at a warrior monk's monastery. What does that mean? Some of those monks, in real world, you look at the Shaolin Temple, they can't see other people outside of the temple. They like
I tend not to like monks. mostly because of the Eastern mysticism thing that oftentimes like feel out of place in like this Western kind of European feeling.
Mm.
Uh, like now, like I'm playing a Castle Crusade, and like I like the monk they did there because like they took out most of that, and you're just like a guy that want to perfect his body or whatever, and I can just like, and I think that's interesting as well. Barbarian Thief, you rage against the darkness, yeah. You bought a level of monk on Kickstarter. That's oftentimes how it fucking feel, yeah.
DM, I bought this really cool splat book. Can I use it?
Yeah. Guardian of the Rune make this comment here, like Grog Knight likes to brag about the one time they played a character with no positive modifier, all the pause in their brain. I like that comment because like, yeah, like people that brag, like, oh man, I played this guy, like, yeah, no stat above a 9. Or like all its stat like was at most a -1. And say, all right, that doesn't make you a good role player. If already you tell it, that's what you're telling me, you know, like you're focusing on the mechanically bit and not on who your character is.
Yeah, and like you said, if they follow that off with the thing I think of immediately is a friend that played in an AD&D second edition campaign with us that he rolled like a 3 or a 4 on his dex, and that's already funny. But it's that he's playing that he doesn't need you to make him make a reflex save or whatever for that to come up. He's tripping over doorways, bumping into people at the tavern all the time. So it's are you playing that this is an absolute wreck of a man, or is it just whenever the DM makes you bring that up?
Yeah. What kind of personality would a guy like that is basically bad at everything would have?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be like very meek? Would it be very free? Guardian of the Rune again. Free League games usually tell you to focus on your character narrative, strength, and weaknesses. Dark Secret and Bound with other player. And this, I wanted to highlight this because this is something I love in game. When they give you something like I said, like in the Free League, you can have this Dark Secret. You also have like a Bound with at least one other character in the party, like something. And it doesn't mean like it doesn't even necessarily to be positive, but it can be something like, oh, this guy saved my life in the past, or I owe a lot of money to that guy, or but something that make you got that with one of the member of the party, and like this guy got with somebody else, and at some point you get like a web that, well, the party kind of stick together because of that. I think that's also something that is like oftentimes missing in games. I wish we would see more.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the only interesting thing that the system does, but it is like the center of the system, so that's kind of okay. I've never played it, but it just seems kind of dry. Hillfolk has your character is basically what's your character's profession in the tribe, and what's their relation to the other people in the tribe. And that's basically all your character is, and that's pretty interesting, right? Because I hate it. Some people like this, and tell me your thoughts on this. Some people like starting the game with none of the characters know each other. You're just all happen to be on the same job. Personally, I hate that because you get all this dumb small talk out of the way. You get all the like, well, why should I trust him? I don't know. I just met this guy, and then you spend so much time with this, and then and then once you've resolved it and you take the job, it feels like it nobody really cares about each other. They're just there to make money. They're there to do their own personal goal. Whereas if the characters all already know each other and have these predetermined relationships, you can build and break those throughout the gameplay, and you skip the annoying bit in session 1.
All the party don't know each other. It doesn't bother me per se, but it does mean that you're gonna have this first adventure, like this team building adventure. You're gonna we're gonna have a reason to get you all together. And I got a few tricks up my sleeve for that. So like through the age, I got like I've been DMing for a long time, so I got like kind of like a folder, you could say, like of an adventure that, okay, I got a new party, people don't know each other, and I'm gonna send them on an adventure, and then by the end, they should have bonded in a way. But yeah, I agree with you. You can take that out of the way and say, you know what? Give me a reason why you work together. What are you? Are you a team? Are you a crew? Are you are you working together on something? Do you like, are you a family? Do you do like the all bard game where you're a band on a tour? Like,
That's gonna
tell
be
me what
funny. And do you want to be here? Are you doing this because you're paying off some debt, or are you adventuring because it's fun, or doing whatever the job is because it's fun? Those are two very different characters that are probably going to annoy each other. I like what Rex Seal says here. One thing I'm getting from this stream is almost all character creation methods can be good, but it has to fit the right system, and I would
the right
say it has
player.
to fit the right person.
Yeah,
I would say if you read the character creation, character creation in and of itself is actually a great litmus test for whether or not you'll like a system. If you don't have fun making a character in the system, is it going to be a good system for you, right? If you make the character and can immediately get invested into who that character is, and you haven't even sat down with the DM, you haven't even sat down with the other players, you're probably going to be hyped for it. Whereas if you've made the character and you're just like, okay, I guess I've got something I can work with here, you're already sort of setting yourself up for disappointment even before the first session.
You see, I see it differently because like there's some games I like that I don't care at all for character creation, but sometimes it's simple enough that it gets out of the way. You just yeah, do it. It's gonna take me like half an hour, whatever, and then like I got my character, 15 minutes maybe, and then I have my character. But once the character, like the mechanically bit are done, then it's just like me thinking about the stuff, and then my fun begin. Like
Interesting.
like I don't need like the fun part of like making a character for me is thinking who he is, which is oftentimes not covered by the system. So even if the system doesn't have that, I can still have that on my own. I don't need the book to tell me to think about like and also you see some people that the fun part of them like is finding the mechanical bit. It's not for me, but it's gonna be for someone.
I like that part of the game. Not as much as actually role playing, but I do like that part of the game.
I used to like it much more when I was younger. Actually, it's growing older. I lost it. I lost it quite a bit, and I think it seemed to be something that is quite common. Actually, I guess we get less patient as we go older, and also,
but I mean,
maybe also we did a lot of like those builds. I did that. I did the strong character that could like fucking run 120 feet per round.
Yeah. But I mean, we like those metrics in real people, in real characters. Brian Shaw, Hafthor Bjornsson. It's like we like that. It's like, oh, look how much this dude can lift. Look how strong these people are. We like that out of them.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about. As long as you're thinking about that, that connection to reality. It doesn't have to be to reality, but to the reality of the game.
Yeah, Armen say I don't like when a GM tells the player, me as a player, what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. I hope that isn't part of session one.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I don't like. I think that's a flaw as a GM when you say tell your player like what they're doing or what they're thinking, what they're feeling.
I highlighted that because I think it brings up the like when I've been in sessions like that where the characters don't know each other and the GM is trying to jam you all into each other, and it's just like they're teleporting people. They're topic for a different day, but it's something that can lead to or something that can lead from not having the characters know all each other. But yeah, if you've got the expectation and you trust your players, which you should, but
yeah. But like, sometimes I'm gonna give it like a directive, like one thing, like, oh, you're all traveling together. Like there's a like some one like I'll give you one that I often use. Like I got a few, but I can tell you, I gave you this one for free. The one you need to pay by sitting at my table. But like one is like oh, you're all traveling together. There's like a campaign that's gonna go on, and you're all in this caravan, like people travel in group for safety and stuff like that. You're all traveling together. You're going to join while the army is gathering before going on a campaign. They know that before we get to the table, and there's a directive like think of a reason why you're going there. Think of a reason why your character is going there. Is your character like a cook and you go there to make food? Is your character like a priest and you go there to offer like a spiritual guidance to the soldier, or your character a soldier trying to go fight? But you all travel together. it's like this Chandler road to you fucking English major, you should know that.
Oh, yeah, that
Chandler
Chaucer, Road to
Chaucer. Oh
Canterbury.
yeah,
Yeah.
Canterbury, yeah, exactly.
Mm.
It's the road to Canterbury. You know, you all like
Mm.
traveling together, but then while on the road something happens, something
Mm.
dangerous, you know, brigands attack or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually a really great example because
Yeah.
in the Canterbury Tales, all the characters are learning about each other. But yeah, I would say that's kind of a good example because also you can have those Canterbury Tales style moments in those where the one of the characters just starts expositing their whole life story, and it's like, Jesus, man, I'm just here to do some work. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, those
And
people exist in real life, you know.
yeah,
You,
and
you
that can be dealt with in role play.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to lead off into the idea of the 30-page backstory and just the sort of too long didn't watch.
Yeah.
It's not necessary, but if you do it, it's fine as long as you're role playing it and not just reading from your sheet verbatim. And you're not getting pissed at the DM for not incorporating your super cool backstory and the
That's something like I didn't watch much Critical Role, but at some point I watched some because I was curious, and I saw like there's those characters doing that like in the first few sessions. At some point, like they just stop and say, "Oh, I was raised a little guy," and you just met that guy. You wouldn't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
like I go
I-
like I got a problem with my car, and there's this old man that come and help me. And we're gonna do some chit chat and say, "Oh yeah, I work for GM, so like he's a mechanic. All right, fair enough. I know enough." He doesn't fucking tell
yeah.
me like, when I was a little boy, I grew up on a farm, but then at
Well,
some point, just like
here's the thing though.
we're having a
Every
conversation.
every so often you will run into one of those people. But if it's every character you're making is
Yeah,
like that, that's when it becomes weird. You have to be acknowledged because I've
and
worked with people where it's like their small talk is telling me all of their personal problems, and it's like, dude, it's a fucking
and
110 degrees, and I'm working on a broken water heater. I don't want to hear your
yeah,
fucking life story.
and when you run into one of those, the first thing you try to do is to run away.
Yeah, it's trying to shut them
Instead, like,
up somehow.
man,
Yeah.
this guy is fucking weird. I don't fucking care. Like we
Yeah.
don't time
Yep.
like I'll care about like people that I know that I have interaction with, but like
Mhm,
other than
mhm.
that, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
yeah,
the thing about the backstory is if it helps you justify the choice of class, the choice of your skills, all the choices
yeah.
you made in character creation, and maybe if it helps, the GM drop little
One or like
plot
low
hooks here and
level stuff
there.
like that. Sorry?
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, you cut out
Yeah.
and I didn't
Oh,
I
sorry.
didn't notice you were still going. But yeah, if it helps your GM and it helps you role play, great. But if it's just gonna be you writing a novel, then that's when the giant backstories start to backfire.
Hmm. And if you like I was saying, like if you start like like a low level character, like whatever
Mm,
like this level or
yes.
whatever classes, keep your backstory fairly short. Like you
Mm.
didn't fucking like kill the
There's
prince and you didn't
there's
run
that
away with
great
the
meme
crown.
of
And,
the
it's like
have you seen it? The fucking like parody children's book cover of like the rogues, 30-page dark backstory, and then the rogue when their first encounter, it's my baby's first knife fight.
yeah. No, I haven't seen the meme, but yeah, I get the spirit. But like
Yeah.
if you start higher level, which is also something we can talk about, creating character at higher level, um, then maybe you can justify like what did you do? How did you reach
Mm,
like 7th level, whatever, if you're
mhm,
playing a
mhm,
D&D kind of game. I tend to have the group working for someone or some group. You can leave that employment after session one if you want. It leads to a fight and groups bond after a fight. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to do it.
mm.
Yeah, have them be on a
And
mission.
then from Rex Steel here. One time I got sick of trying to make a complex backstory, so I just made a wizard who was senile, needed prescriptions, and was seeking arcane knowledge. It was simple, but I liked it. Yeah, I like the 13th Age is their backstory system is basically the one unique thing. You have one thing that's unique about your character. All right, moving
Yep.
on. It shouldn't give you mechanical benefits, and
Mhm.
that's it's just there to make your players start thinking about role play. I like that. That's really all you need. Um, yeah, on the topic of starting at different levels, different people are going to have a different line for that, right? You know, if you start at level 3, do you need more of a backstory than you would if you started at level 1? Maybe not, but if you start, you know, you're starting to start at level 5, level 10, especially if you're starting, like, maybe you're making a one shot at level 20, you know, because people don't D&D players complain about, oh, we never get to play level 20, we never get to play high level, so sometimes people run one shots at just super high level. Yeah, you'll kind of need a backstory, but if you're just going to play that for one session, a one-off to appease Connor,
if your backstory is not gonna come into play, like, maybe don't bother.
yeah.
And also you can create the backstory on the fly. It's relevant. Or you can create, like, if you're gonna keep playing this character in further game, then maybe you can think about it a little more, you know. Tie it into the world, tie into the action that happened, you know. That's instead of having the GM trying to tie in your backstory into his world, try to tie in the GM world into your backstory.
Yeah.
Why not?
Maybe a successful knowledge check means, oh yeah, I remember studying this back at the college and, you know, in my my student days, or, you know, oh yeah, I you know, I grew up in this area. Of course I know that, you know, or what have you. When you didn't have any of that written down, you just, that's what that role means all of a sudden. But of course, if it's going to be a long-term thing, if you like jump in, like recently I've had a few players jump into, I say a few, two players jump into my long-running Pathfinder campaign at level 17 and 18. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to expect, you don't suddenly become effectively a demigod by just existing. Or maybe you do. And tell me, you know, tell me what your ideas on that are. Are you like the favored, you know, son of a demigod? Are you like a demigod? Is that that can be something if we don't want to make it super complicated in one of those very high fantasy games. And you know, that can be super interesting to me because it can lead to people getting pissed. You know, we've worked super hard to get to the point of power that we're at, and you just get it. You just get to show up here.
Yeah. That's actually, like, Crapphoniers, it might be an interesting thing if you do a session 0, have player make a group backstory that explain why they are together. That's I wanted to talk about session 0, making character together. A lot of people say, like, you know, session 0 is when you make character, you make your character together. I can go both way on that. Like, I do like when the players make the character together. At least, like, they don't, like, if you have like a more crunchy game, they don't have to have like every little fiddly bit nailed down, but, you know, kind of know, okay, who the group is, why are we together. That's the right time to do it. And if you want, like, to like this niche protection, party dynamic, stuff like that, all right, that's fair. But if you don't do the session 0, then yeah, I'm all right with I'm gonna find a reason to put them together. But it's a little more work on the GM. What do you think about that? Do you think it's a necessity? Do you tend to do it, the session 0?
I think you have to have a session 0 because you need to have a clear understanding of what are you looking to get out of this game, right? I don't want to lean anybody on, especially you. Let me rephrase that. You have to have a session 0 if you're playing with people you've never played before.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because I like eschew it, but like I often play with the same kind of people.
Yes, if you play with the same people that you played with in the last group, it might be okay to just send in, you know, in your Discord or whatever, hey, I'm running a new game. It's going to be these days. Make a character for it, and then we'll meet and we'll just get started playing. But I still like having the session 0 to go, okay, yeah, do you guys know each other? Do you not know each other? What's the sort of, what do we want to get out of this campaign? Is this going to be, you know, or is it going to be very combat heavy? How long do we want the campaign to be? What sort of fantasy level? What system are we using? Maybe we haven't even decided what system we're using until session 0, right? That's session 0 is just I want to run a game. Everybody who's interested, let's get together and talk about what that looks like. We should do a video on session 0s in the future. I think there's a lot to talk about there. But yeah, absolutely. One of the things you can talk about there is, you know, how did the characters meet each other? And maybe that's all the backstory you need.
So when you expect your player to come to session 0, you expect to come without a character?
Yeah. maybe an idea of a character, right?
And then the character is created like during session 0 or
Yeah.
between session 0 and session 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All
You
right.
know,
I think
we
that's fair. Yeah.
yeah.
I think there's a definite advantage to it, and I do like it. It's not something that I require, but again, like I said, I often play with the same kind of group,
Mhm.
more or less. Yeah. Um, like Rex Steele say, I very much prefer creating backstory through play and using what I'm actually doing in the game as inspiration for who this character is. I agree with that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have like some big line, I know kind of who he is, what he likes, what he wants. But then, like, yeah, I'm gonna add to that as we go through the game.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to do it because if you pre-make your backstory too long, you can pigeonhole yourself into, oh, I wouldn't do that. This character wouldn't do that because I've already written that, this is a thing that, he just doesn't do, so you can create moments where you're like, oh, why would I do this? My character has no reason to be here because of who I've written him as. On the
Yeah,
flip side, though, if you make no backstory, you can have those sort of early sessions become like you're sort of wandering and trying to figure out who this guy is. But I think both can work. I think
yeah.
it's worse to have a giant backstory you'll never use. Definitely. Um,
Armen, like say to reply to Rex Steele, I agree and find that even if a player have a complicated backstory, they only remember and refer to things that have happened in the game in the past. Yeah, I can see that also. Like oftentimes they write those big backstory, they're gonna
I
dump it once and never touch
okay.
it again.
I have two players. I have two players who have backstories, and they have not sent them to me. Great for them, great for implying how they roleplay.
Hmm.
But if they want me to do something as like an NPC comes back from their past to start interacting with them, and then maybe they start hurting, not just that specific character, but the party or something, whether that be through violence or something else. Uh, I can't do that if I don't know, what it is. So, that's it requires communication with the people that are running and an expectation that, hey, okay, yeah, I can incorporate stuff from your backstory. Because to me as a GM, that's free writing. I'm getting writing from my players. I don't have to come up with stuff, it's a free like starting point at least.
Yeah, and there's a one thing I wanted to mention also, like it's kind of going back to earlier a bit when we talk about Traveler. And it used to be that your character could die in creation. At some point, it's been
Mm,
changed. Your character isn't gonna die. He's just gonna start with like medical death, like medical bill and stuff like
yep.
that.
Yep.
And there's game, oftentimes like I forgot which one, but there's game like a sci-fi game, and Traveler do that as well. I think you might start with a ship, but you owe money on it.
Mm,
Those game that give you an incentive to adventure. It's
mm,
built in the character creation. You got this
yep.
thing that you need to solve. You got like this problem back at home in your past, whatever, that you
Yep.
need to solve. I think that this is also something that I like quite a bit. Some game does it, not enough in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's
I think
something
it's
that it's
something.
something that absolutely also can be done like outside the game system. You can just
That's what I
add
was gonna say.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, but I think it's because there's so many, especially modern systems that have the like wealth by level tables where it's like, oh, you're starting the game at level 3, you get 2,000 gold to spend. But you have to remember that's a guideline.
Hmm.
Nothing is saying that you as a GM can't go, oh, you're playing a noble from a noble family. Here, have some more money, but you're probably not going to be as good at fighting. I think people are too scared to play with the mechanics of the system, and maybe don't do that the first time you play the system, but subsequent go through. Maybe you go, you all are starting at level 5. Hey, does someone want to start at level 2 but just have a ton of money to spend and see how that works out? That could be interesting.
Hmm.
Shadowrun does the debt thing too. It's a flaw you take. You take debt, and then that's more communication with the GM. I would who are you in debt to? If you don't give me an answer, I'm gonna choose who you're in debt to, and then all right,
Hmm.
you better fucking be working for the Yakuza, or they're gonna come in and they're
and
gonna
and
take
that
your legs back.
yeah, that has to come into play. Like if you
Hmm.
like you need to pay back that debt.
Yep.
You fucking go in dungeon, you take the loot. Well, you're not gonna get to spend it
And
because you got this debt.
in Shadowrun, it can be really interesting because, like, man, if you took a bunch of debt to get a cool cybernetic arm, and you fail like the first couple, you're not doing well the first couple of sessions, the Yakuza might come back and just rip your arm off and pawn it off. Now you're playing a one-armed character.
And somebody else can buy a used arm.
Yeah, you can. I think the used cybernetics in Shadowrun, they take up more humanity.
I
Which
can
is
see that. It's kind of
it's
gross.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a but yeah, you could also take inspiration from like Deus Ex, the video game series,
Yeah.
where it's like you've got this. You're not in debt monetarily necessarily, but because you've got these cybernetics, have fun being on drugs, so your body doesn't reject those the rest of your life. That's.
An ongoing money sink in a way, and dependency, addiction.
Yeah, and Shadowrun also has like the lifestyle thing where it's like you choose how well you're living, in the downtime, in the off screen. Do you live in some hovel, and
Yep.
or do you have a pretty nice, maybe that's why your character does, the shadow running, all the criminal enterprises, because they live in a super expensive penthouse in the middle of
Yep.
Seattle, and they've got to do.
That's something in Pendragon as well, like the standard of living. But in Pendragon, the goal is to gain glory. It's not about like getting stronger or anything. It's about like getting glory, and spending a lot of money make you more famous. So, is there another thing you want to talk about? Like NPC, creating NPC should be like done the same way, or you can just like wave it off?
I think my shorthand thing of that is I don't like when NPCs play by different rules than the player characters,
Oh, really?
because then it starts, unless you're hiding it very well, then the players start seeing, hey, this guy's doing things that we cannot possibly do. What does that
Oh yeah, no,
mean?
no.
What is that?
Nothing that you cannot possibly do. Like they don't have like their own fucking feed that don't exist otherwise. Although maybe it's a new thing that he developed himself. If it's a big bad guy and stuff like that, like maybe it could be something.
But
Like,
yeah,
oh, it's a new
but I'm
technique.
referring like
You want to learn it?
specific.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm referring like specifically to things that it's just not, but like legendary actions in 5e where it's just this. It has no real flavor. It's just to solve the problem of action economy in a really clumsy way. I don't really like that. I like when the NPCs feel very organic when you build them as the same way as the players. I want the player characters to be looking at them as just other people and not looking at them as, oh, this is an NPC.
Yeah, this is like this is just like this challenge that we need to face, and you got like those mechanical bit to it. Yeah, like that's interesting way to say. Like I didn't think about that in that sense, but yeah, like those legendary action. Like you often mention, like tying the mechanics into the fiction, and yeah, like those have like lair action. Maybe I can see stuff like that, but like, yeah, you're right. Like those but other than that, when just like human being and people and stuff like that, like I'm not like gonna spend the time to create a character for like the leader of the brigand. I'm just gonna give him some stat.
If not every single time. If it's I like having a list of character, but everything, their character sheet looks the same, right? They might not have been created. I know that the topic is character creation. They might not have been created through the exact same means, but they could have been created through the same means. And then for like, if it is, we're talking about villains next week, but if it's your big bad, we'll talk about whether or not you should have a big bad.
Yep.
I think sometimes yes, sometimes no. Definitely, yeah. Create that character from scratch. That's I wouldn't just use. I wouldn't just use, oh, this is the giant, wizard. I'm going to use the blank no name wizard NPC sheet for this. But if it's he happens to have a court wizard that's just sitting off on the side, yeah, I'll grab some wizard character sheet because he's not important, right?
There was like this comment like earlier that Armin made, like I prefer minimal character creation, role play the character you want, ranger, roll up a fighter and play it like a ranger and learn ranger stuff, require a long campaign, I guess. Yeah, that's and he said then like I wanted to make those two together. Actually, the one report. Hard Wars looks interesting. You choose. That's hard for me to say. You choose two classes to combine for your class. You can get very creative. Still simple with limited basic power and skill. I will play with the author in 3 weeks. Okay, I don't know about that game, but like those two coming together remind me like when I was a lad and I was learning D&D, I always like thought like I started with a second edition, and I always thought like there was too many classes because you had like those stuff like, oh, you have a fighter and you have a cleric and then you have a paladin that is kind of like the mix between the two, but like you can multi-class, so why not just like make them, well, create your own class, a specific class in that way, by if you allow multi-classing. And the same thing with the ranger, it's kind of fighter and a thief and maybe a bit of druid, and the druid is just like a cleric that's specialized in nature. I always like thought there was like a bit of those you know you gave me
Oh, lost him. Um, collecting my thoughts here because there is something I want to say here. I generally,
sorry, I lost my connection there.
yeah. I was just gonna say I generally actually prefer classless systems, but I think Pathfinder solves the issue by going in the opposite direction of just going, here are so many classes that you're definitely going to have something that fits the character you want to play. So yeah, you want to play a fighter that's more like a ranger. Okay, well play the archer fighter archetype. And then pick all of the feats that play like so it gives you the tools to do that. Whereas in a classless system, you don't have to you don't have to mess with all that. You just play the character you want, and then you pick and choose everything from the ground up. That's also a way to do that, right? I think, yeah, I think class-based systems can get messy. They can get uh, you can get into traps almost of playing. I'm playing a ranger. I'm gonna play Aragorn. I'm playing, a wizard. I'm gonna play Gandalf. I'm gonna play, and you just always end up playing the same character because the class is it only has so much that you can do.
Nowadays, like it feel like the new always playing the same character is playing against type. That's from like if you like look at the new crowd, like that's always like they do. Oh, I'm playing like this paladin, but it's such an ass. You know what I mean? Like they always like try to do this make this twist, but it end up always like being the same fucking twist. So
yeah, exactly.
The subversion became the new show. There was Crispy earlier like talk about Numenera.
Yeah.
Cypher Stem, interesting character creation mechanic. Are you familiar with that one? Focus on one description. I think that's also like a kind of aspect kind of game.
Yeah, and 13th Age.
And same with Fate as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Monty Cook worked on 13th Age and Numenera, and I so it's very similar to the one unique thing there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
That's an interesting comment. I find Arman says that I find classless systems end up being skill-based systems, and players end up playing their skill list and not the character. Because I was actually going to say sort of the opposite, in that one of the issues with Pathfinder, one of the things that I don't like about my favorite system, is that you have so much that your players can end up going, Jesus Christ, what the hell do I have? Well, okay, I can do this, and they just have this giant list of different stuff that they can do at any given moment, and it brings them out of a guy's charging you with a sword. What would you do? You just need to think about what that character would do. You don't need to think, and then it can be as simple as, I shoot off a bunch of arrows at him. Okay, make me a full attack. You don't need to be thinking, I make a full attack at him.
Yep.
Just describe what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say as well. Like in kind of a different direction, I guess. Like I prefer like skill-based game, but I think for a skill-based game, like, and maybe those like free league game kind of get away with it. which is kind of a hybrid game as well. But like
Hmm.
usually, like I think those skill-based games usually to work well, you need to have a big list of skill. Like a
Hmm.
short list of skill that are broad, I think that's a mistake when you go skill based, and that's a big problem with 5e because like now because the list is a short list of skill but broad, people now look at them like button they can push, and because the skill are broad, they look for, oh, like I want to do this thing. There's not a skill that is specifically called that. So now they look at the list of skill again and again, trying to figure out under which it would fall.
Yeah, like
If you have this
Shadowrun.
big list of skill, like in Call of Cthulhu, for example,
Yep.
like player won't remember all the skill. So oftentimes what's gonna happen, they want to do something, they're gonna say what they want to do before they go look on at the sheet, and then as GM you can say,
Hmm.
oh, okay, roll that, you know.
Yep. Hmm.
So
Yep.
I find like it's kind of like maybe counterintuitive, but I think like a big list of skill make people look at the skill less because they
Yeah, because
assume that there's gonna be a skill for it.
yeah, because they know. Yeah, they know. Yeah, there's there's less of that. Would this be applicable for? Can I use this in this? There's less of that because you just that's like when it's specific, you're like, okay, the GM's gonna know what applies to what I'm trying to do here. Like in Shadowrun, you have the skill groups and the specializations, so you can be skilled at pistols but specialized in revolvers, so you add some more dice when you're there. And then you
Yeah.
have the big list of the knowledge skills they call them, which are just like they're separate, and it's just like fill in your own. What does your character know about? That's
Mhm.
the broad side. So they have both this very specific list and this broader list in one system. At least post fourth edition. I haven't read first through third edition of Shadowrun, so
Mm.
don't quote me on that.
Paris Parlor say, I don't find the benefit of having 80 different type of rangers spread across 10 books. That's
I
something like when you start having like classes in many books, that's something that
if
I know big time on that.
if Paizo were not generous and just gave us all the crap for free on D20 PFSRD, it would be nightmarish. That would be awful. There are games like that, Infinity's Edge, that I'm playing over at the Talking About Games channel right now.
Mhm.
Everything is split across a million books, and because it's not open gaming license, none of it's online for free. You have to buy everything. So if you're in a system that's not giving you everything for free, it's not optional. God, it's annoying. And he also mentions people don't read the fucking manual as it is.
Yeah.
God, it's the worst. When you're in one of those systems, you have to have players that know how to play their character, or as a GM, be willing to be a little harsh and be willing to skip their turns. Be willing to just go, oh, as Abraham says, you were just frozen in combat. You couldn't think of what to do, and that's it. Damn, learn your character.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to character creation, or did we go round enough?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we could keep going. I got, the fiance's got barbecue in the other room, so.
Yeah.
But no, I think character creation informs a lot of whether or not you'll like a system.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot to consider there, but we've covered a lot of it.
I think like if I want to what I would wrap up as is like you said, character creation like can inform a lot about the system, but also about the world, about the setting.
Mhm,
So there's something
mhm.
that can be, if you have like a setting that is baked in the system, that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. Character creation is an important part of the game because there's one thing we didn't talk about. Lethality. If you have a character a system more little, like we cannot skip about that. If you have a system more
Yes,
lethal,
yes.
does it matter how fast the character creation is? Like if your character creation takes half an hour or an hour and a half or fucking 3 days in the case of Pathfinder, then are you always gonna be on the back burner? Or are you gonna try to make your system not lethal? Or is it like a or the if the character creation is too fast, or the player not care as much about their character because I'm just gonna make another one.
Yeah,
I'll
and I
like
mean that can be a thing in like Dungeon Crawl Classics and the systems that go off of it is, not to care about the characters right away because it's assumed that's like, they're gonna die. And
yeah.
then what happens if none of your characters make it through the funnel? Then it's like, what? No, well, now what do you do? Do you play somebody else's character who had two of their characters make it through? So it can make that funnel session a little like, yeah, you have to make yourself want to care about it. Whereas, yeah, definitely in a system like Pathfinder, by the time you're done making that character, you either care about that character or fucking hate Pathfinder. One of the two. It leads to one of those two circumstances. And in Pathfinder, at a certain level, it becomes really hard to permanently kill characters.
Mm-hmm.
I need to make a video. I've been meaning to
Permanency
make.
is the
Yeah,
effective word here.
I've been meaning to make a video on that, but at low levels, yeah, you spend like you said, 30 minutes an hour making a low level Pathfinder character, and then somebody gets a lucky crit, you're dead. Does that player want to make another one? Well, if they were on the spectrum of I hate Pathfinder's character creation, no, they're not going to come back to your table.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're on the table of a really care about that, now all of a sudden they have that session means so much more to them because they lost a character that they really cared about, and that can be.
But if it's a character they care a lot about, but enough time you to play it, it's also very frustrating because like you like
Mm-hmm.
I like my love of the character to grow as I play it.
Yeah.
I don't like when I first session the character maybe the character is gonna be cool, it's interesting, stuff like that. I don't love the character because I don't know him yet. I mean, I kind of like to build that. But yeah, I can imagine if I spend like hours and hours creating a character, then yeah, having it die like at the first fucking encounter, that kind of sucks.
But now let me lead you to a trick of mine, also free from me. Now you make the next character. What's their personal goal? Getting that character resurrected, at least in Pathfinder, getting that, and that could be a very long-term goal. Okay, this is maybe you're playing a relative of this person, and you can get into the annoying trope of dying too early, and so the player just makes the exact same, it's his identical twin brother,
Yeah,
and it's like, no,
change the
don't
name,
fucking
add a
come.
2 after the name. Yeah.
Yeah, don't fucking come here with that, but make somebody who cared about that character, and it's like, they wouldn't have normally been an adventurer. And I think
Would you
you
care? Would
mentioned
you
like,
care if he take the character to the next campaign? He save it to the, or maybe
yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be fine with me. And goes through and resurrects that character. And I've had players do that. They resurrect this character, and now it's like, okay, that they go back to playing this character that they didn't get to experience anymore, and
but
they
it's level 1 or whatever.
mm-hmm,
It's like many
mm-hmm,
level behind.
mm-hmm,
And now hopefully also they grow more attached to the new character.
mm-hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, I
Likewise,
think
when there's that other discussion of when you die and you make a new character, are you making the new character at the party's level or are you making them at level 1? Personally, I know people that do, it's an old school thing to you remake your character at level 1. That's a good way to get people to not show back up to your table, in my
yeah,
experience.
that depends a lot on the system, in my opinion, because like there's
Mhm,
those, like I often like, that's something I don't like about D&D and D&D type game. I think the power curve is too big. There's too much difference between the early level character, between the level character. I like when the power level is much more crunched down. So then when you start a character level 1, it doesn't impact that much. Yeah, you're not as good as the other one, but it's not like, well, you cannot do anything. There's no chance yet those monsters will encounter because you're way too low level. You know what I mean? And maybe like, but as a player, if I die, I like the challenge of being like way on the
mhm,
level. And I'm with
mhm,
you.
yeah,
I need to have some reason to be with you. Like I'm gonna
mm,
find something there. And I think that's an interesting play as well. And at some point, like somebody else gonna die, and then like the level become all spread out. I like that. There's some compromise too. Or you start at half the level, or like 2 level behind, or 1 level behind. If people want to have like some punishment for dying, I don't know if there should be like punishment for dying. Uh, I don't know if that's something that should be done personally, but
Art Arnman has a funny thing here. Some people might find this too gamey, but I actually like this. I'm in a group where if you bring snacks, you get XP for a new character. If your character dies, you roll up a new one and get to add your snacks XP. Are better if you bring snacks that nobody likes. Do you get less XP?
that's
No, I
ridiculous.
mean that might be too gamey, but it's good social contract. You don't have people just showing up to mooch off of the host's fridge. But yeah, like I like playing under leveled characters uh in systems like the later editions of Dungeons and Dragons, where there's
Mhm.
that big, you have the oftentimes we mentioned that it's not a linear growth curve, it's a logarithmic growth curve. So
Yeah.
level 1 character starts over here and then they end up way over here by level 12. It means that character adds that contrast to the world of how powerful the characters do get.
Yeah.
Because I think the problem is, because the GMs usually, you level up, you're fighting more powerful threats now,
Yeah.
just naturally, but
But
also sometimes because
even in the design of
contrived.
game as well, like because like characters are like a monster or a big bag of hit point, you chip away, chip away, chip away at the hit point, but at some point it would take too long because like the hit point goes so high that now like character make like monster make more damage and character makes more damage and stuff like that. And but then you come with a low level character, well, everything's gonna fucking kill you in one hit.
Yeah. What I was trying to say is that it becomes it becomes almost, this character is playing a horror game now, and everyone else is playing the powerful and ideally you can only do this if you have a good group. And I'm not saying do this every single time, but if you're interested in this sort of thing, it can become maybe this character is not here and important because they're very powerful and they're helping you achieve the goal, but maybe they're noble, maybe they're an important political figure and they don't have particularly a lot of personal active actionable power, but they need to stay alive. The rest of the group has a vested interest in keeping you, brand new level 1 character that just got that just got added to the party, alive. And so they need to use their wits. They need to hide. They need to the rest of the party has to think of like, okay, what items, what expertise, what magic do we have that we can use to make this guy competent, even if only for a moment, at helping us. And it becomes a different kind of puzzle than how do we beat the hit points out of this thing as effectively as possible. How do we keep this guy from getting touched? Period. Because if he, this dragon's gonna breathe on him literally, and he's gonna keel over.
Yeah. I like this comment from Arnman. Like I've sacrificed my character to save a higher level magic user in the group. I roll up a low level character playing alongside a strong wizard. Yeah. And also, like I think like one thing that's interesting is that can be done when you play like in those XP level kind of game, which is not all of them, but get your character to get lower character, gain maybe more XP because like they kind of learn faster, and also like they're just gonna level up faster based on their level threshold is so they have a chance to cut up.
You're getting more XP from the stronger threats too, so that the rest of the party's fighting.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think like that's something that can kind of counterbalance as well. Like it's gonna be like it's gonna suck for a little while. Maybe not even sucks because, like I said, it can be a fun challenge.
But it'll be a different gameplay experience.
Yeah, there's also always the option like if the party use retainer, now like promote one of those retainer as character.
You can also Deus Ex Machina, but before Deus Ex Machina suck in game, but when it's before the game, it's like, especially in a world where there are, oracles, chosen of God, you can literally have it be like, or maybe, make it, sort of warlocky. You made a deal with the devil, what did you pay? What did you pay to be, the same level as the rest of the party without, experiencing much of anything? So you can play with it in ways like that.
That's something like bother me in D&D is like with the sorcerer specifically. The sorcerer, you just like get your power because you're born with them basically, like for some kind of reason. So like, all the character, like like it's assumed like they train, they learn some skill. The wizard like studied, the fighter like trained, stuff like that to gain the skill. What the fucking sorcerer did, you just like you fucking sat on your end for your whole fucking end. You just like born with
The
those power,
yeah
and you did nothing
yeah
in your life. So you didn't learn any class, anyway.
yeah.
Bit of a tangent.
I treat sorcerers like superpowers, where it's like you probably found out that you could cast fireball in a pretty horrific way. You
With your
that
first love,
probably was was not an easy experience for you, and if a
premature
random
fireball.
yeah, if a backwater village finds out you're a sorcerer and not a wizard, they're probably going to be very suspicious of you, if not just run
Mm,
you out of town. Because it's
yeah.
like, oh well, a wizard at least somewhat understands how they made that fireball. If you look at me with fire on your hands and go, I don't know how I do that, yeah, I'm chasing you out of town.
Anything else you wanted to add? Like, oh, we should start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I think so. It was a good stream.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say earlier. Like, I think like character creation is an important part of the game. Obviously, you need to have your character. It's the first contact you have with your character,
Yes.
and it's an opportunity. Like, I wish more game would take this opportunity to tell you something about their setting if they have an implied or an explicit setting that this type of game. Not all game does. Sometimes it's not really impossible, but also tell you more about who your character is, not what your character can do. Having those bound, having those linked to the party. And if the game doesn't provide that, that's something you can add as a party, as a group. You can like take the time to say, okay, who are you? Why are you adventuring? What are your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Your motivation. Those are things that need to be talked about in the character. Your character go adventuring. There should be a reason for it. What was his call to adventure in a way? And why are you with this group? What are you trying to achieve? If the system doesn't provide you that, make sure to consider that on your own when you create your character. Make your character more than just a bunch of buttons you can press to do
Yeah.
stuff.
And that's something you have to do in some systems. I would say in most D20 systems, you have to do that. You have to add it outside the game, but it's there. You have to look for it. It's like me personally, I like reading through old medieval manuals and early Renaissance manuals. They don't tell you exactly what they mean. You have to figure it out. And if that's not for you, if you don't enjoy that sort of thing, it's that system might not be for you, right? Because yeah.
All right. Thank you for everybody that joined us live, and thank you to everybody that watched on the replay. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, subscribe to Tyler channel, like and share if you found this conversation interesting, and tell us in the comment what you think. Like, tell us what your favorite system for character creation, like the system that like say like, man, even if you don't like the system, that's even more interesting. You say like, I fucking love creating character in this, I just don't like the system. But let us know what you think in the comment down below. And we'll see you next week. So at 2000 EDT. So that's 8 p.m. Eastern time for American. For another Dice and Design. And we're going to talk about villains. Making like that follow nicely to character creation. Now we're going to think about like making villains, like interesting villains, like those big bad guy and stuff like that drive the campaign forward. Anything you want to announce that you want to shield for yourself, Tyler?
I'm going to start making videos, more and more videos soon. Today I made a sort of follow up to our last stream on lore dumping.
Yep.
So that's a pretty short video. Check that out. I plan on making some non RPG related videos on martial arts and the like, sort of that you could incorporate into your RPGs, sort of the context behind some of the HEMA dueling, and the not fighting to the death. That's a big misconception. We were talking before the stream about medieval misconceptions. People weren't fighting to the death. That was made illegal in almost everywhere in Europe. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of intersection between real historical European martial arts and RPGs, check my channel out. More of that coming soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for watching. Yeah. What a funny time.